people tell me that if I was forced to do something as a kid by my parents, I should be grateful to them, because that's the reason why I'm able to do that right now. The good example would be the piano. I was forced to play piano as a kid for almost 10 years, and it took maybe 3 or 4 days of my life every week. And right now I know how to read the keys, I know how to play a simple melody on the keyboard. And when I rented a keyboard a couple of months ago, after like a huge and long break in playing piano at all, or approaching the piano, I would say, I managed, in a few days, I managed to read some simple melody from the keys with both hands, and I could play it relatively without like being forced to run away from my apartment, hearing that crap. So, should I be grateful or not? I'm definitely not grateful, and I can explain why. Like, first of all, I'm not arguing with the fact that if they didn't force me, I would not be able to play right now. Yes, I was forced to do that for 10 years, and the consequence is that I'm able to play relatively not so bad some keys. I know some rules, I remember something, maybe 5% of what I was learning, and yeah, maybe it wouldn't have been among my interests if they didn't force me. But first of all, imagine a kid who is passionately interested in what he or she is doing. For example, learning how to box, learning how to play tennis, learning how to climb something, learn a language, learn whatever. And this kid is left alone. This kid can do whatever he or she wants. Would it take 10 years to learn something? I don't think so. This kid would be passionate. This kid would be eager to learn. He would be keen. And the information which is like its place in your head within like a year can actually take its place in a couple of weeks or a month. Even as an adult or as a teenager, when you remember when you're doing something with passion, like really eager to do that, it takes maybe hundreds of times less to remember the information, to learn how to use it, and to apply some like critical thinking to it, rather than when you're forced to do it. It's the same thing about school, it's the same thing about job and university. So now, what else happens when you, like, what's the biggest difference when you do something with passion, like eagerly, or you do something forcefully? When you do something with passion, you feel anticipation, you feel interest, you feel a lot of interest in a lot of things which happen around music. For example, if I play piano without force, I would be interested how to learn how to use the keyboard, how to compose music. I would be interested to learn maybe to listen to different types of instruments. I might get interested in physics because it's pretty cool to know how exactly my ear hears the sounds. I also can be interested in mechanics to know how how this device works, the piano or the keyboard. One interest always drags another after itself. And what happens when you do not have that interest? You're forced to go to play music 4 times a week. You don't want it, and you just spend your time doing that, and you know that it's like kind of your obligation, you have to do that. You go there are no other interests, there is just this dullness and obligation and responsibility which you have to carry, and there is nothing else. So speaking of those 10 years spent doing something I didn't want to do, not only I lost the 10 years when I could do something I really wanted to do, and there were things I really wanted to do actually. There were languages I wanted to learn, there were other physical disciplines I wanted to do, there were things I wanted to, embroidery type of stuff, and gymnastics and boxing and tennis and whatnot. I had a lot of interests as a kid, and many of them were suppressed when I had to replace the things I like to do with this music. those interests which I had, they could bring another interests, and those could bring another interests. And by now, or by the end of those 10 years, when I finished my musical school with perfectly, with all perfect A+ marks, I could be a specialist in something. I could be anybody. I could know a lot of things about lots of things, lots of disciplines. I could learn physics or mathematics or geography. I could be anybody. But who I was a person who finished musical school, and my parents obviously were happy because they were perfectionists and I was too. I wanted to satisfy everybody to prove that I'm not an empty space. And I did to my parents, but never to myself. I could play some melodies, some compositions, not even decently. I would do a lot of mistakes, and obviously if I want to listen to those compositions, if I like them, I would obviously just download them from internet instead of listening to how I played myself. So that's who I was. The next thing, those people, the grateful theory people tell me is that when you're not forced to do something for 10 years in a row, or 5 years in a row, doesn't matter, you are not being persistent and you are not actually being able to learn something, because you're jumping from one thing to another. And again, sometimes yes, maybe yes, because if you're forced to do, for example, boxing for 10 years and you don't want to do that, you probably will be better at boxing if you start box, you tried 1 week, then you switch to jiu-jitsu, then you switch to parkour, then you switch to physics, then you switch to glass blowing. You will be jumping from one thing to another. But that's the way your life goes. That's how you are looking for the real interest, your real passion. That's how you will find something which you will be enjoying to do, what will bring you anticipation and joy, and so on. So being forced doesn't mean advantages. Being forced only means that you're killing and suppressing your own interests, your joyful wishes, the ones which are fulfilled with anticipation and followed by joy. And that's when you get your persistence. When you jump up from bed in the morning and you want to do some things so strong that you anticipate this day, when you go to bed, you think that you'll wake up next day and just be enjoying what you're doing so much, instead of thinking, oh, I have to go to that musical school again. Now when I remember those music classes, I remember that the best part of going there, imagine 7 years old goes 4 times a week to the musical school. It took 45 minutes one way, and it took maybe 1 or 2 hours there, and again 45 minutes to go back. Some of the adults always were taking me there, and the 3 best parts out of those events were not in the musical classes. They were when I was going there. Like, for example, autumn, I don't remember, it was autumn. Yeah, I was picking up the chestnuts, and they were the fresh chestnuts which just dropped from the tree. They looked so beautiful. I really loved the way they look. It gave me some feeling of beauty, and I enjoyed just spending lots of time just running around those chestnut trees and collecting their chestnuts and bringing them home. Another thing was when my grandmother took me to some shops on the way to the musical school, and without the knowledge of my parents, she bought me some new colored pens or markers. That was, or maybe ice cream. That was the best part number 2. And best part number 3 was when it was raining, the gray floor was either black or white, and I was jumping from black to black without touching white. That's what the kids do. So those were my favorite parts. I can't recall any anticipation, anything but those dullness, or maybe sometimes ego, when the teachers were telling me that I'm a good kid, I can do that well, I have to do better than others in the concert, and so on. Yeah, there was some ego because people kept telling me that I have to be better than that girl from the other class, and so on. sometimes it would be even fear, or because one of my teachers was hitting my fingers when I was doing something wrong, and the other one was telling me how stupid I was when I couldn't recollect some tone or some composer. And another thing is what happened when I actually started to play that month ago. As soon as I took something, as soon as I printed some keys, I was hit by lots of the memories from my childhood, lots of emotions which I haven't been feeling for a long time. I felt like I was a loser, that I have to impress somebody, I have to play this composition but not the other one because of some, I don't know, stupid reasons. I felt like I was like that kid again who was forced to do that. And it took me some time to stop being that inner kid, inner person who was watched by others, and just ask myself, okay, what do you want right now? What do you want to do? So it took me a few days to just go through that pile of shit and to just start thinking about what I want by myself. And I got that I don't really want to learn how to play a new composition because I don't want to impress anybody that way. But I do want to learn how to mix different kind of instruments and how to compose music. And that requires more of learning how to use the keyboard rather than using the piano and playing piano itself. I will never become a super pooper piano player because I don't want to spend hours and hours and years to just learn that. It's just not something I want. And the music classes were extremely boring. It wasn't just music, actually. It was also what was called solfeggio, where you have to learn the tones, play scales, play some stupid, useless stuff. You have to learn different composers and when they lived and what they thought when they were writing something. And we had to sing, which I also didn't like. Probably, I wanted to play violin, and I don't know why my parents didn't allow me to play violin instead of piano. Probably because it was, some honorable stuff to play piano. My kid has to play piano. It's Russia. You have to play piano. Probably if I was Jewish, I would have been able to play some violin. So, am I grateful to my parents that I know how to use the keys, and I remember that like 3% of what I was forced to do as I was a kid? Absolutely not. They took 10 years of my life. They suppressed a lot of things I could do as a kid, suppressed a lot of my interests and a lot of interest which could actually come out of those interests. They made me lose so much time and lose so much energy and so much things I could do. I'm totally against that forcing. I'm totally against people doing that. I actually think that it's a crime to force a kid to do something what they don't want. It's killing a kid when they're still the kids, when they're still alive enough to be able to find their own interests. Because when you're already an adult and you went through the musical school, regular school, university, work, the motions with your family, and lots of stuff you have to, like lots of motions you have to go through during your everyday life, there is no place for finding something new and interesting anymore. There is no place for anything at all but the dull things, or some ego stuff, or some satisfaction at most, which you can think of, oh yeah, I've accomplished this, I've accomplished that. I don't want to accomplish anything. I just want to be alive. I want to wake up and think, okay, today I will do this and that. Today I will be learning some piece of genetics. I will write a letter to somebody. I will go in box. And only when I was like 20-something years old and I got rid of the influence of my parents and of the memories too, I started to fulfill my child's dreams, like tennis and boxing and traveling and scuba diving and skydiving, lots of things I've been dreaming of as a kid. So do not be grateful to people who force you to do something you don't want. Do not be grateful to people who take anticipation and joy out of your life. And try to surround yourself with people who support what you want, who support you to be alive. Even if it will take you 10 years to jump from one interest to another and be looking for what you really want.